A hint of surprise and elation flashed through Hanli's eyes upon seeing this, and he pointed a finger at the yellow-haired man. In the next instant, a small azure sword appeared above the yellow-haired man's head, then swooped down with incredible speed and power. The man's body was instantly sliced into two, and his soul was also completely torn to shreds. Only now did the other two Heavenly Court cultivators return to their senses, and they immediately turned and fled in two different directions while summoning a string of immortal treasures to defend themselves. All of a sudden, Immortal Lord Hot Flame appeared in front of the female cultivator, blocking her path as he swept both sleeves through the air, sending a wave of golden ripples surging toward the woman. As soon as she flew into the golden ripples, she was instantly slowed down significantly. "It's my turn now!" Immortal Lord Hot Flame chortled as he made a hand seal to send several fiery red flying swords hurtling directly toward the woman. Hanli took a glance in Immortal Lord Hot Flame's direction, then turned to the final Heavenly Court cultivator, but didn't immediately strike. Instead, he turned his gaze to the green gourd before thrusting a palm into its underside once again. The third Heavenly Court cultivator, a portly young man, was flying extremely quickly, and he was just about to disappear into the distance when a streak of crimson light shot out of the gourd at an incredible speed, appearing behind the portly young man in a flash. The layers of protective spiritual light around his body were torn apart by the streak of crimson light with ease, and a large hole was punched through his lower abdomen, destroying the nascent soul inside. Immediately thereafter, a small azure sword appeared above his head, then swooped down to slice his body into two as well. After that, a burst of azure sword light surged out of the sword, picking up the portly young man's storage tool before carrying it back to Hanli, who remained still on the spot, observing the green gourd with a contemplative expression. That streak of crimson light was the burst of law powers that had been sucked into the gourd in the wake of the destruction of that fiery immortal sword. A faint smile appeared on Hanli's face as he stowed the green gourd away, following which two small azure swords appeared beside him, both of which were carrying storage tools belonging to the yellow-haired man and the portly young man. Hanli stowed the two swords and storage tools away, then flicked a finger through the air, releasing two balls of fire that quickly incinerated the remains of the two slain Heavenly Court cultivators into ashes. Right at this moment, an agonized wail rang out, and Hanli turned to discover that the female Heavenly Court cultivator had already been set alight with silver flames. She was frantically trying to douse the flames, but her efforts were completely futile, and she was also incinerated into ashes in the blink of an eye. In the next instant, Hanli appeared beside Immortal Lord Hot Flame, and the latter asked, "It's you, right, fellow Taoist Li? Thank you for your help. Now's not the time for small talk. Let's get out of here first," Hanli said as he made a hand seal to release two thick bolts of golden lightning, conjuring up a lightning array. A loud thunderclap rang out, and the two instantly vanished into thin air. Shortly thereafter, an arc of five-colored lightning arrived on the scene, drawing to a halt in the sky above the call. The lightning then faded to reveal Su Liu and a scholarly-robed man, both of whom had grim looks on their faces. "It looks like Yi Lian and his two companions were all killed," Su Liu remarked in a grim voice. "Huo Zhuozi is only at the late Golden Immortal stage, so there's no way that Yi Lian and his two late Golden Immortal stage subordinates should have been killed by him, especially not this quickly," the scholarly-robed man said with tightly furrowed brows. Su Liu swept his gaze over the battlefield, and all of a sudden, something caught his attention as he descended beside the bottomless hole that had been pierced into the earth by the beam of yellow light that had come out of Hanli's gourd. He crouched down to examine the hole a little closer, and the grim look on his face became even more pronounced. The scholarly-robed man flew down beside him, and after briefly inspecting the hole, he declared, "This is definitely not something that the likes of Huo Zhuozi and Yi Lian could have done. Someone must have killed Yi Lian and his subordinates and rescued Huo Zhuozi." The scholarly-robed man then began to chant an incantation, and a wave of rippling white light surged out of his glabella before instantly spreading over the entire surrounding area in a radius of several dozen kilometers. Shortly thereafter, he continued, I can sense the aura of a fifth cultivator here outside of Yilian and the others, and that person was most likely the culprit. However, the aura that they've left behind is very faint, so they must have anticipated that someone would come to search the battlefield. In the end, they appear to have used some type of lightning spatial array to flee the scene with Huozhuozi. Can you find out the destination of the lightning array? Sulu asked. I'm afraid not. The lightning array has already teleported them outside of my sensory range, the scholarly robed man replied. Sulu fell silent upon hearing this. What do we do now? The scholarly robed man asked after a brief silence. We can't find any leads, so let's go back for now, Sulu replied. As soon as his voice trailed off, he swept a sleeve through the air to release a burst of 5-colored lightning, which swept up both of them before sending them flying back the same way that they had come from. In the sky above a lush forest in the Black Mountain Immortal region, a vast expanse of silver lightning cascaded down like a waterfall, forming a lightning teleportation array that contained Hanli's duo. After the lightning faded, the two of them traveled southward for several days before descending into a small town concealed within a call. Upon landing, neither of them said anything, as they busied themselves with concealing their own auras, and only after that did they make their way into the town along the bumpy stone path. At the entrance of the town was a wooden archway that was in a state of severe disrepair. The black tiles on top of the archway were covered in moss, and the words Green Forest Town were engraved onto lintel below. The archway was tilting slightly to the side, and upon catching sight of the town's name, Hanli suddenly recalled the first town that he had stayed in after leaving his village countless years ago as a child. That town's name had been Green Ox Town, and there was only a difference of one word, but the two were worlds apart. What is it, fellow Taoist Li? Immortal Lord Hot Flame asked at the sight of Hanli's distracted expression. It's nothing. I was just reminiscing about some past events, Hanli replied with a shake of his head. You're still in the mood to be reminiscing about the past in a situation like this? You certainly seem much more composed and relaxed than I am, Immortal Lord Hot Flame said with a wry smile. We've been traveling southward this entire time, but along the way, we've changed directions eastward and westward several times, and it doesn't seem like we're being tailed by anyone at the moment, so there's no need to be overly anxious. Hanli said with a smile. The two of them passed through the archway to discover that the town wasn't very large, but it had everything that one could hope to find in a town like this, including restaurants, shops, and inns. Hanli and Immortal Lord Hot Flame entered a tea house, then requested a booth on the second floor before sitting down next to the window. The waiter brought to their table a pot of premium tea and some well-made snacks before departing, leaving Hanli's duo on their own. Hanli lifted the teacup before taking a whiff, and he couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in surprise at the refreshing fragrance of its contents. I didn't think there would be such fine tea in such a secluded place. Immortal Lord Hot Flame took a sip of tea upon hearing this, then immediately set his cup down again, clearly not as impressed with the tea as Hanli was. I'm even more indebted to you now, fellow Taoist Li, Immortal Lord Hot Flame said as he turned to Hanli with a serious expression. Before we discuss that, why don't you tell me why you were being attacked by Hanli cultivators? Hanli asked. I'm afraid I can't answer that question, fellow Taoist Li, Immortal Lord Hot Flame replied with a slightly awkward expression. It's fine. I can roughly guess the reason. Something must have happened in your sect, right? I'm assuming this is also why you told me not to use my identity as an outer sect elder of the Fireleaf sect any longer. You helped me in the valley, so I'm only repaying the favor here, Hanli said. That was part of my consideration, but mostly I just didn't want any more trouble, Immortal Lord Hot Flame sighed. Hanli picked up his cup to take a sip of tea. Beat you right as he was about to speak again, his expression suddenly changed drastically as he stood up from his chair, and an azure bamboo cloud swarm sword appeared in his grasp in a flash. Immortal Lord Hot Flame immediately sprang out of his chair as well upon seeing this, and he followed Han Li's gaze, turning his attention to the entrance of the booth. At the same time, a burst of silver light appeared there without any warning, giving off formidable spatial fluctuations. A burst of azure light immediately emerged over Han Li's body as he prepared for battle, and the aura that had erupted out of his body in that instant was so immense that Immortal Lord Hot Flame couldn't help but be momentarily dumbstruck. Right at this moment, a slightly familiar voice rang out. "Settle down now, fellow Taoists. We are not from the Immortal Palace, and we don't mean you any harm." Two figures emerged from within the silver light, one of whom was a handsome purple-robed young man, while the other was a thin black-robed young man.